earlier in the game, you're driven a lot by fear.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I don't do this, I'm going to I'm still unfortunately motivated by fear. And I know that's not the best way to be motivated. I know love is the best way to be motivated. But to this very day, I'm fearful that I'm not going to make it. I'm fearful that it's not going to work. I'm fearful. And if you can transition that into doing it out of pure love, which is what I think you were able to do in your business, is you started to, and I think I did the same thing. I evolved into, I truly, genuinely was more in it to impact people's lives. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Excited to be here with you all today. My name is Brandon Neal, here with my co-host Jeff Fieldstad, and such an honor to be here with one of my best friends in life, and him and I have got quite a history together in business and in life, and just doing a lot together, right?
Right.
And it's a crazy world today. We've been talking the last little while about doing something together, maybe putting a book together. And then we thought, maybe we'll do that one day, but right now, why don't we do a podcast together? And we just feel that it's a crazy world we live in today. There's a lot going on. In fact, we just heard about a shooting in Texas. I think it was yesterday that happened. Yeah. Just a lot of crazy things in the world today. The wars going on and everything, and all of the, I guess, just differences of opinions with everybody. And so we've been talking about what do we want to do with this podcast? What are we going to call it? And we came up with the name Solid. And just thinking that, when you think of solid, what do you think about? And I think of Jeff Fieldstad, I think of solid. He knows who he is. In fact, we were talking, a week ago or so, and we thought about, what if we call it grounded? Because you're a grounded guy, and anytime I've been with you, it's just been, you know who you are. I mean, you stand for something. You don't let anybody sway you. You don't care what anybody thinks about you, in the sense that when you're standing for what you believe in, they can disagree with you, but you don't.
Okay with that.
Yeah, which is just awesome. I've always admired that about you, and you've grown into that so much. So started off with grounded, and I thought, God, I think maybe even a step above that might be solid.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Jeff, man, I'm love you, man. I'm proud to be here with you and to do something great here together. And
as well.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Feel the same way, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, me too. So I think maybe to kind of start things off here, we ought to just kind of tell everybody our stories a little bit, maybe, and discuss that and see where this goes.
Yeah. What have we done? What have we accomplished? And why should people listen, right?
Yeah. I think so, for sure. And you've lived an awesome life, and I guess just starting off, I would ask you, and then maybe I'll go after you. I don't want to feel like I'm interviewing you. We're co-hosts here, so you got to interview me too. But maybe we ought to start off with you, Jeff, and just actually, I'd like to introduce you a little bit first, just from what I know of you, and you can fill in the gaps of what I maybe mess up here.
Yeah.
But we met 2004 or 5.
We met in 2004 is when we first met.
Yeah. Yep. And I met you, and you actually came to one of our opportunity meetings we were doing with our business, and I met you there, and I think you had to come late and leave a little bit early, if I remember right. And we just met briefly and talked a little bit, and you told me you were a boxer, and I was always looking for fighters back then, and not necessarily fighters physically, but fighters just that were
people that wanted to win.
They wanted to win.
Yeah.
They wanted to win. They were competitive. And I remember that about you. And anyway, long story short, we got to know each other a little bit better. We ended up going into business together. And so I know that you grew up, in situations where, I mean, you were in a lower class situation, right? That's kind of where you grew up.
Yeah.
And then from there, we joined in business together. You were a student of the business. In fact, you were my office manager for a while, right? For what, a year? 2 years?
Yeah, I think 9 months.
9 months.
Actually, 9 months, so just under a year.
And we went to lunch every day, pretty much, and talked about business and winning. And at that point, I wasn't sure if you were going to actually take this thing and start going. I mean, the way I actually recruited you, if I remember right, was I said, hey, I need a new office manager.
Yep.
And I hired you as an office manager first, right? And then you were around our growth early on and kind of saw our business growing and our agency growing in the financial industry. And I think you eventually thought, man, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
And so you got involved, went full force into it, moved to Boise, Idaho, built a big agency up there, moved to Vegas, built a bigger agency there. And then recently, so over the last 15 plus years, you built that incredible business and then recently sold that business.
Yep.
And left a very successful team with the person who bought it, Mario, which we'll have him on here. He bought both of our businesses because I did the same thing, right?
Yep.
And now, Jeff, you're completely financially independent.
Yeah.
You live in a dream life.
I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Because of you, man.
Well, I may have introduced you to an opportunity, but I don't think it's because of me, man. I think you took it. You've worked your tail off. I've watched you focus. I've watched you just grow and make it all happen. So,
I appreciate
that. Some people that are listening to this know who you are, but the ones that don't know who you are yet, you need to pay attention to Jeff because that's what I would say. But Jeff, tell us about growing up. What was it like growing up where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up, I was raised, my mom went to college, but never made any money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of 6 kids. And so we grew up in poverty. We grew up in a bad neighborhood. And when I was young, the neighborhood we lived in really was like violence and gangs and people getting in fights and stuff like that. And I think when you grow up in an environment like that, naturally you're, angry, I think, as a young man. And so I that was who I was becoming. My mom, I didn't think liked that, so moved us to southern Utah. But we went from one bad environment to another bad environment, meaning that, we went from like gangs and violence to southern Utah where it was just the neighborhood we lived in was just drugs. Everybody was just poverty stricken,
Mm-hmm.
and just not a good environment. But I think I'm grateful for it because I never looked at growing up like that as like, oh, woe is me, dang, this sucks. More so, I think gave me a lot of desire. Like I want to build a life one day that I can get out of living like this so that when I have children, they don't have to live like this, right?
And you thought that way back then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that probably, gosh, man, when I was young, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yep.
I was just thinking, what do I have to do to be successful enough so that when I have children one day, they don't have to live like this?
Why do you think you thought that way, and maybe your siblings did think that way? But why do you think there was a difference?
I don't think my siblings did
Okay.
at all.
Yeah.
I think still today, I don't think they think that way. And I think the perspective, that's why so much people hear me talk about perspective, is because over the years I look at like, what's the difference between my siblings and I?
Yeah, right.
It was same environment, same parents, same everything. So what is different? And the only thing that's different is the way that we saw things, right? And so, coming down to southern Utah, and then I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was a boxer. I loved the sport. I thought that would be a good way for me to make a lot of money and get out, if you will.
Were you kind of headed down not a very good path until you got introduced to boxing, or were you?
Oh yeah, I was in and out of trouble, I guess you could say, really all through high school.
Okay.
Really, probably until Primerica.
All right.
I was in and out of trouble. So, like in high school and stuff, I barely showed up. I got in fights all the time. I was just like this lost kid that had some motivation, that wanted a way, but I really didn't have anybody in my life that was willing to like pour into me and teach me how to become solid, right?
Yeah.
Or build a solid life, or just to be a great man. I didn't have anybody. And then when I started boxing, there was a man named Keith who started that process and really made me realize that I could change. And he taught me a lot of great stuff, like working hard in the boxing gym, showing up early, staying late, working harder than the next guy. A lot of stuff that I think helped me in life. And then as I got out of high school and didn't know what I was going to do with life, I quit college after 2 weeks. I went to college and then I quit because I saw my professor's car.
Yes.
Right, so
why would I listen to this guy?
Yeah, that's what I'm sitting here thinking. Like, I've worked this hard to get to this point, and I'm listening to this guy that drives that car. Like, really?
Yes.
I don't know why I thought like that, but I just did. And so after 2 weeks of college, knowing my professor, I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. I just didn't want his life. And so I quit. Didn't know what I was
Real
gonna
quick,
do.
I got to back up to the boxing part, because something I think you should talk about just for a second is you talked about showing up early, staying late in the boxing ring, and you did that, didn't you? I mean, you were the first one there,
All the time,
last one to leave, and your mentor,
Yep.
what's his name?
Keith.
He saw that in you, and you were successful, weren't you? I mean, weren't you?
yeah.
I mean, you were winning fights, and because you were putting that.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I was never the most talented fighter, but I was definitely the hardest working. Oh yeah, I would show up first thing in the morning. Even when I was in high school, I would be the first one at the gym in the morning before high school. And then I would, because that's when all the pros would go work out. So I would go work out with all those guys, and then I would go to school. And then the gym didn't open until 5 o'clock at night. And so I would go do track. I would practice with the track team at high school and then do that, and then still be the first guy to the gym. And I would stay there until the doors were closed.
And that led to success.
Yes.
And I mean, think about it. And the reason I think it's important is because how much did that teach you? That period of life in your life teach you that you use to this day? You probably think about that, I would bet, every day.
Yes.
I bet you think about that lesson. No, man, maybe I wasn't the most talented, but man, I showed up earlier, I worked hard, and it paid off.
Yeah.
And so now moving forward in life, like right now, I know we're talking about a lot of stuff in the future. And we were talking the other day, I go, man, you're doing like all these different things, and you're like, and I was asking you, how are you going to do it all? And you go, I don't even know how I'm going to do it all. I'm just making the next step.
Yes.
And you know that by that work and that effort, that if you put in the work, put in the effort, it will pay off.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It always does. That's the price. Everybody, what's the price you got to pay? That's it, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, hindsight is easy to look at hindsight, right? But you don't know that at the beginning. You just have to have faith or belief that doing the right things leads to the right result.
Right.
Yeah, so I think in boxing, and then really after quitting college, I started doing advertising and marketing, and that's like right around the time I met you, right?
Yep.
And so I was...
You were 18, 19?
Yeah, I was 19.
19.
Yep. And so, and I loved it. I really liked what I did.
You were good at it. You were making money.
Yeah, I was making money. I was doing commercials.
You were making 50, 60 grand a year as a 19-year-old kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
At least, yeah. And
that was back in 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just, I was making what most people would say was good money, and I was having fun. It was creative. But then I got my pay cut. And you had been following up with me that whole time, because we had originally met in 2004, which is when I was doing advertising, and it was going good. And that was really what stopped me from getting started or doing it, and then you following up for that whole time, I had got my pay cut. And so...
Yeah, your office was next to my office, so I would just drive by. Every time I'd go to my office, I'd swing in and say hi.
Yeah.
And Karen, your mother-in-law, who you worked for, was like, who is this kid that keeps dropping by to talk to Jeff, right?
Yeah, she would always complain about you coming in. She knew you were trying to recruit me, right? So, yeah, but then joining Primerica, and then, obviously the rest is history. All the stuff that I learned, from you and the environment and all of that kind of stuff changed my life,
Yeah.
So.
Right.
It's awesome.
Cool. Well, cool. Well, yeah, I think my story's a little different than yours growing up.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's I really am excited about this is for people to see, because our stories are so different, but we ended up in such a similar situation, which is cool to give hope to anybody, regardless of where you come from. You can get what you want out of life if you focus on it.
Right. No, absolutely.
So, yeah, man, I'm excited to hear your story. So, yeah, talk about your childhood.
Yeah. So, I have fortunate, great parents. Mom and dad, both just the best parents I could ever ask for. My dad, hardworking, was a lineman his entire career. In fact, he just retired at the beginning of last year. So he's 60. How old is he now? 67, 68. He just worked for so long, and a lot of it by choice. He could have retired quite a few years ago, but he just one of those guys that wanted to just keep after it and keep himself sharp, and so he did that.
Sharp, right?
He is sharp.
Great shape.
He is sharp. Yep. And so I learned a lot about hard work from him. My mom Same thing. I mean, when we were younger, she was a stay-at-home mom, and then when we got a little bit older as kids and we were at school all day, she also went to work to make extra money. So just a good middle-class family growing up, and we had everything we needed and more. We got a boat when I became a teenager, so we'd go to the lake all the time, go to Lake Powell every summer, 2 or 3 times a summer, and great childhood that way. My dad took me hunting every fall. I've been a hunter my whole life. I love to hunt, obviously, with everything in this room here. So I love that. Love that I grew up doing that. I've got a little sister, a little brother, and I was the oldest of 3. And I think early on in life, one of the things that really helped me was my parents, during the summers, they weren't okay with me just hanging out and chilling all summer. They wanted me to go and make some money. And I also had some buddies of mine that were mowing lawns and stuff. I mean, probably, I don't know, pretty young, 11, 12, 13 years old, right? And that's about how old I was. And so I'd see them starting to make this money, and I wanted to make some money too. And so I had a cousin who was a general contractor.
What do you think gave you the desire? What was it that you were wanting to do with the money as you were?
So yeah, that's actually a good question. So I do remember there was when I was a real little kid, I mean, I would say 6 or 7, I wanted this bike lock for my bike so I could go lock it up, and it was a combination.
Yeah.
And it was like $4, right? And I wanted it so bad. And my dad said, hey, tell you what, go weed the garden and you can get that bike lock. My dad had a huge garden, by the way. I had a lot of rows, right? And so I go out there and I start weeding, and I do a good job at first. And like a lot of little kids do, I started to get lazy and just started to like break off the tops, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the garden was just broken off tops on the weeds. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm all excited. I get it all done. I thought it was done, right? My dad gets home. I go, Dad, I weeded the garden. Can we go get the bike lock? He goes, yeah, let me go check out the garden. So he goes and checks out the garden. He says, come here. He goes, okay, see all these weeds that are broken off? He says, now it's going to be harder because you broke off all the tops, but you got to get the roots out. If you don't get the roots out, you didn't get the weeds. So he said, look, we're not going to get the bike lock today, but tell you what, you go make it right, fix it, and we can go get it tomorrow. So I learned, if I'm going to do something, I better do it right. Yeah. And I also weeded that entire garden, got it all done. I think it actually took me a couple of days, if I remember right. So I did to do it right, because it was a big garden for $4, right? Yeah. But we went and got that bike lock. It was so rewarding. So I think early on in life, I learned the lessons of why hard work is so beneficial. Right. And I worry about my kids now because, in fact, we have somebody currently come and do our lawn. I'm like, I think I need to have my kids do our lawn, right? Yeah. Because I always did my lawn growing up. And
yeah, that is the thing you think about, I think, as you start improving the quality of your life, is how do we teach our kids those same vital life lessons that created hunger and drive inside of us, right?
Right, because you can tell them. Yeah. But it's just not the same, Yeah. And in fact, my daughter, Jersey, right now, she's turning 16, and so she wants to get this car. She wants to get a Subaru WRX. So she's starting to get online and look at them all. Dad, here's one. And they're around $18,000 to $20,000 typically when she finds them. And I go, okay, well, you got to have a down payment for that. And she's starting to realize, holy crap, this car thing's kind of expensive. Yeah. So she got a job recently, a few months ago. Now, this is my daughter, Jersey, who we were like, okay, what is she going to do? She's always been very creative. She's stubborn in a good way, and sometimes in a good way, sometimes frustrating way. But I think it's a good way. I think it's a good thing because I think it's going to benefit her in life. But we were always worried, man, is she going to be motivated to go do something, right? And she only wanted to get a job at this one place called Bahama Bucks. They make shaved ice, and that's the only place she wanted to work. So she just applied to Bahama Bucks. We tried to get her to apply to other places. She would not do it. We're like, Jersey, you got to get a job. Anyway, she stuck after it and she got the job. Yeah. Well, since she's got the job, she's taking every shift she can, and she's seeing how much a car is, and she's motivated, and I'm just super proud of her. So I'm excited that, man, she's getting it. Yeah. Now she's 15. I wanted her to get it earlier, right. But it doesn't really matter. No. I mean, as long as we can help them get that lesson sometime, right? So I feel blessed that she's
it's cool.
Getting that.
It's cool hearing it as you tell your story about that happening to you as a child with a bike lock, and that turns into later on happening to your daughter. Yeah, in the car is cool.
Well, I mean, yeah, just like you learning in boxing the importance of hard work, right? Mm-hmm. And all this led up to that for me too. So, you know, when I was, I don't know how old I was, 10, 11, 12, summertime, my dad, so my cousin was a general contractor building houses. He was just getting his business started. He was working his tail off. And obviously a lot older than me. You know, he got married a few years prior and was just working on getting his business started. So my dad, I asked him if I could go to work for him. And he said, yeah, sure, I can have you do, there's a lot of stuff you can do on the jobs. You can go, you know, be a grunt, pick stuff up in the sites, keep them clean for me, maybe do some little odd jobs for me. So my dad, he would leave to go to his work in the morning, drop me off at the construction site. I'd be there all day, and then my dad on his way home would pick me up, and I'd go home, and so I'd work all day. I'd learn to work 9-hour days, 10-hour days as a young kid.
At 12, 13 years old.
Yes.
Yep.
And initially, I mean, that's a long time, you know, yeah. And in the hot summers, but man, I started getting those paychecks. I think I was making like $4 an hour, you know. But those paychecks were awesome. Yeah. They were big, you know, and for me, and I saw that. And so when it came time to get a car down the road, I had a down payment for my car, and I paid for my car, paid for my own payment, paid for my own insurance, and I learned a lot from that because I had to think about it. I had to think about, okay, if I'm going to go if I want to go to spring break, if I want to go to Moab to spring break to ride mountain bikes with my buddies, I got to plan for that.
Yes.
I got to pay for gas. We're going to have camping equipment and everything else, right, and food. And so those little lessons there growing up, I mean, I think are crucial.
Right.
And my dad always just told me, he said, look, whatever you do, when you go to work, be the hardest working guy on the job. So I remember I was probably 14, 15 at this point. I was still working for my cousin, and he would tell my uncle, he'd go, Brandon is my hardest working guy on the job. And he was talking about everybody.
So let me ask you a question. I think this is awesome because so when your dad was teaching, I guess, think about how many parents do you think in this world teach their parents that example, first of all? Like if you were to give it a percentage, what percentage of parents do you think, hey, go do what you do and become the hardest working person there? What percentage of parents do you think actually just say that to their children?
Unfortunately, I think we live in a world where there's so many comforts that a lot of people have become soft. Yeah. You know, I don't mean to offend everybody out there, but I think that comfortable times, we've heard the saying, comfortable times create weak men, right?
Yep.
And weak men bring on bad times. Yep. And the bad times bring on the strong men. Strong men bring, you know, so I think we're seeing that in our world today. And percentage-wise, boy, I mean, this is totally off the cuff. I don't know, but 80% probably don't know how to really teach that
don't teach their kids. Yeah. So I would agree too. I have no idea what it is, but it's crazy because that's not only what they say, right? But then how few actually showcase that example of actually working hard, which is more important. So I guess really it led up to my question, which I already knew the answer, but when you watched your father growing up and then he tells you to be the hardest working guy on the job, would you say that he was the hardest working guy? And I already know the answer to that. And so that leads up to my following question is, do you think that gave your father more credibility with you as you listened to him say those kinds of things to you? Do you think you took it more seriously as a young man because you watched him do it?
No doubt. Not only is he the hardest working guy, but I believe hard work builds a tremendous amount of character. Mm-hmm. Get emotional even thinking about this, but just thinking about the character of my dad.
It's awesome.
Because he's a lineman, right? Mm-hmm. Not a business guy,
right?
But everybody loved my dad. Mm-hmm. He was an example to everybody around him.
Yeah.
And an example to me. So yeah, I think just that character of that I saw him build was something I wanted.
Right.
And when I was in high school, and I was a wrestler in high school, and we have our wrestling meets, and he wasn't able to go because he was working. He worked so much overtime. And he would do that, but we would also, the trade-off was we got to go to Lake Powell for a couple weeks of summer. We got to go hunting together. So for me, I never saw it as, oh, my dad's not here to support me. I was proud. I was proud my dad was out working.
Yeah.
And I think that's different for a lot of people. Look, I want to be at my kids' events. I really do. At the same time, I also want them to know that if their dad is working, it's because he wants to provide an even better life. So there's some trade-off, there's some sacrifice.
Right.
I may not be able to be at every event. I know my dad wanted to be there.
But also, wouldn't you say that your dad spending those times with you at the lake and hunting, it was much more intentional, focused time
No question.
than ever could have been sitting in the stands cheering you on, which I'm sure he would have loved to have been there too, right?
Sure.
That was a trade-off he was making, but in return, taking those times that he had available to really pour into you. Did he take advantage of those times? Like you felt?
Oh my gosh, like you can't believe. I mean, you're gonna make me cry more, man. But there are just times where, like, I remember my transmission broke on my I had a little Toyota SR5 is what I can't remember what they were called, the little Toyota pickups.
Yeah.
My transmission went out on it, and I was on my way to Moab for spring break, and I still wanted to go on the trip with my buddies. I go, Dad, I'll just ride with him. He goes, listen, son, we're going home. We're fixing your truck.
Yeah.
And he took the time, which he was a busy guy, working all that overtime, and unselfishly helped me rebuild the entire truck. And so, yeah, he would take those times with us as kids to teach us right. I mean, those lessons that we learned from him that, I think, although he did spend a lot of time at work, he did have those times where he spent that time with us.
Yeah.
And I don't think that happens a lot. I had my dad is a man.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people get that today, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, in the world today, so many people are looking for the things that make their child's lives more comfortable rather than things that they can do to provide a good example to help their children build higher quality lives.
Yeah, for sure.
I think as parents, I think that's what we all want, right? Is our children to have a higher quality of life because of our sacrifices, and to teach them the principles and those things so that they can go do the same thing for their children, right? And we can create intergenerational wealth and better lives and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right, for sure. For sure, yeah. And, all of this served me well. I mean, I ended up serving a mission for my church.
So talk about that for a second, because I think that was an important thing, too, that I see. It really helped you in business as well. Mm-hmm. That going on a mission for your church, it's 2 years, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that. What did you learn? Obviously, it's 2 years.
Yeah, so back then, 19 years old, if you wanted to, you could go serve a mission, preach the gospel for 2 years full time. So that's kind of a typical thing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's what a lot of the youth are doing. And today it's at age 18 the young men can go, and at age 19 the young women can go, so they can go a year earlier now. But yeah, you go out for 2 years, and when I went, there was no internet, there was none of that, right? So there's rules you had to follow. You couldn't call home, except for on Mother's Day and Christmas. Those are two days you can call home.
Twice a year you can make a phone call home.
Yep. Dads didn't get any love, but moms, yeah. So moms and Christmas time, and then other than that, you could write a letter a week. You had a prep day, and your prep day would go till like 4 p.m. And that was it. And so I'm actually grateful that I went when I did, because I don't know how I'd feel about going on a mission today with being able to hop on a Zoom to say hi to my family. I think I would almost make it harder.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there, and I learned focus. I learned discipline on my mission. I already learned that prior to, but on my mission it was no different. I heard just be disciplined in your morning schedule, and the Lord will bless you the rest of the day and the rest of your mission. Yeah. So I was super disciplined on my morning schedule. I was probably one of the only missionaries that actually got up a half hour earlier to work out every day. I worked out every day on my mission.
You're still that way, right?
I still do that today.
Yeah.
And then we'd do our study together. We'd do our personal study, companionship study, and then we'd go out and we'd start teaching the gospel. We'd knock doors sometimes. We'd have appointments with people and just share the good word, and did that for 2 straight years. And I learned on my mission leadership. I did follow the rules. I'm a very structured personality, and that was another thing I figured if I better follow I figured I needed the Lord's blessings. I better follow the rules, right? and I'd be blessed. And we also would joke. We'd say, if you do a good job on your mission, you'll be blessed with a beautiful wife, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell I worked really hard because I got a beautiful wife. So I think that's true. But no, yeah. I served in a lot of leadership positions on the mission, and then those 2 years fly by, right? And then came back from my mission, and I was so structured on my mission and so focused every day that when I got home, I'm like, hey, now what the heck do I do?
Right.
And I guess this is where your and I's story are going to kind of merge together here, because
I also think what happens right now, for those of you guys that are watching or listening to this, what happens right now in Brandon's story is what happens in almost everybody's story at some point in their life, but the decision that you make of what path to choose is going to determine your life and how it's going to turn out in a huge way. So like at this point, right, Brandon, what do a lot of people do when they get back from their mission, or 2 years of hard work, of anything, right? It busted it for 2 years straight, really 7 days a week, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So most people would get home and relax.
That's,
you were looking for the next thing.
I didn't feel right to me to sit. I was going nuts when I got home because I needed the next thing, and I didn't know what that was. Fortunately, my wife, Lexi, was riding me on my mission. Mm-hmm. So when I got home, I at least kind of had her to start dating, and I didn't want to date around. I wanted to get married and get on with my life. So I wasn't really focused on dating around. I knew, I kind of already had a feeling she's the one. So, yeah, when I got home, I had a couple jobs that I got early on. I went to college for 1 semester, and just like you, I'd go and listen to these professors, and nothing against them, but I'd go, okay, why would I listen to this guy or this gal who is doing something that I do not want to do? It didn't make any sense to me. So I lasted 1 semester, and I was done with school. I was.
I was going to say, it's funny to me that a lot of people take advice from people they would never trade lives with.
Yeah.
And they let in people influence their lives. Like, they'll willingly say, influence my life, even though I would never want your life, but you can influence my life. And then somehow they think it's going to turn out different, right?
They're not consciously thinking about it, right? They're just kind of going with the flow. Like, hey, you're supposed to go to school, get good grades, and then when you get out of school, you're going to have a job land in your lap. And I really think people still think that today, a lot of people, Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy to me. What do you think what was it at that point in your life that was causing you to be in college and watching someone like a professor in college and thinking, I don't want his life? Like, what? Because obviously your father was a hardworking man and had a job too, so it's not like you grew up in this entrepreneurial environment.
Right.
But it seems like you kind of had that spirit, even though you're a very structured person. So you're kind of, I would say, a unique entrepreneur, because most entrepreneurs really wouldn't call themselves very structured people.
Yeah.
Right? Which is something I've learned from you over the years and become a lot more structured, but I definitely wasn't at the beginning either.
Yep.
So what do you think it was at that point in your life that caused you to see that? Where was there someone else in your life that was an entrepreneur that they had a life that you wanted, or what was it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're right. I'm actually a pretty risk averse person by nature. I mean, I like the idea of, having a safe, secure job. I still like the idea of that, believe it or not. Yeah. Even though I know that's not the way to go, that's why I don't do it. Right. But I like the idea of it. There's a big part of me that goes, I wish it was that way. I wish it was that easy. I wish you go to work 9 to 5 and have nights and weekends off and everything was rosy and you had a white picket fence. Yeah.
Wish it worked.
Yeah, I wish it worked. It just doesn't work. Yeah. So I realize that. But yeah, so to answer your question, I did see my dad who was always employee, right? My mom, she did do real estate with my uncle. So my uncle, successful real estate broker, and I watched him through growing up, and he was super successful. He had his sons, my cousins, that were also in real estate, doing very well, and they were all entrepreneurs. And then my cousin, who I worked for in construction, entrepreneur, right? And I saw how they were doing it, and none of them went to college, and none of them went to school, and they were successful. Or actually, I guess one of my cousins did go to school and did actually go to the U and did graduate, but that's not how he was making his money.
Right.
And so I thought, why am I going to spend 2 to 4 years going to school just because I'm told to go to school when I don't like it? But was I did.
It their lifestyle, you think, that was motivating you? What was it that you saw in them? So obviously they all owned a business, but what was it that you saw about their life or about their character or about what was happening at that point? What was it that you saw that maybe influenced your decision?
Lifestyle was secondary. It was character. It was the relationships they had. It was the way people talked about them, people that knew them, admired them. And
so you looked at them as people of influence in your community.
Yes, and I wanted that. I wanted to be that type of a man, you know.
Awesome.
So it really drove me. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I thought about going into construction. And what had happened is I was supposed to go back. So Lexi and I got married 9 months after I got back from my mission. It was September of 2000. And then we were both working at Discover Card, a credit card company. That was a job we had. And a coworker of mine there introduced me to Primerica. And I went and looked at an opportunity meeting and just made total sense to me. So I had Lexi come with me the next week. She saw everything the company was about, and I turned to her and go, what do you think? She goes, let's do it. So that was December of 2000. So December of 2000, we turned in our applications to work with the company, and it was like the answer to my prayer. I thought to myself, this is it. This is the vehicle. And it was, I mean, there wasn't even a doubt in my mind. I remember calling my mom on the way home from that meeting saying, Mom, I'm so excited. I found out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I finally know where I'm going. And she's like, great, what is it? I go, I'm not going to school next semester. She goes, Brandon, you'd be an idiot if you don't go to school, right? And I go, Mom, no, listen, I'm going to go to work with this company. I just went to this meeting. It's in the financial industry, part of the biggest company in the world right now. And at the time it was a division of Citigroup, which I thought was a big deal, right? And she said, oh, be careful. And my dad said the same thing. Oh, be careful. They get you all excited in these meetings. I go, I understand, but this is it. It was an answer to my prayer. I knew it was where we were supposed to be. And so that's what we did, man. We got started, and I started part-time. I was part-time the first year, worked on it every minute that I wasn't at my job. I'd get off my job, I'd study, I got my licenses out of the way. I got my life license out of the way the first 60 days, my investment licenses within the first 6 months. Was a regional manager within 9 months, quit my job, and then became a regional vice president 18 months into the business, made about 20 grand the first year, then a six-figure income my second year. I was 23 years old. And that was just everything to my belief. I mean, and what was really cool about Primerica, and you know this, I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot, is the way that other leaders in that company make you feel special.
Yeah, I think definitely that's the magic of Primerica.
No doubt.
About it.
No doubt. So they took this young kid, and I'd win the trips, and these people would come up to us, not even knowing who we were, and go, you guys are so young. Oh my gosh, you are incredible. You're winners, you're studs. And we're like, we are? And it just made us go, yeah, we are.
Made you believe in yourself maybe before you did.
Oh, no question about it, And so that's kind of how that got started. I had that drive because I saw those examples in my life, and I knew I wanted that. I just didn't know how yet.
Right.
So through prayer and looking at opportunities, and all I can say honestly is an answer to prayer.
Yeah.
It came to us because we were searching.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't realize they're praying for opportunity, right? Or whatever they want to call it.
Yep.
And the people praying for opportunities, they'll find it, and because maybe they're not prepared, or maybe maybe it's not the right time, or it causes anxiety or anxiousness in their life, and then they don't take advantage of the opportunity because maybe whatever it may be, these fears that come up, and rather than saying yes and getting started and getting better throughout the process, they talk themselves out of it, right?
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but I think that's the power of having positive people around you and creating a culture and an environment of people who believe in you so much that even if you get started in something, you doubt yourself, because naturally, like, I wanted to quit every day sometimes.
Oh man.
Am I good enough? But then you have someone who treats you like that, and someone who believes in you like that, and is genuinely willing to pour time and effort and energy into you, and then it changes the way that you start thinking about yourself and thinking about your ability to overcome in the future.
Right. Well, I remember you getting started and getting going, and you were my office manager, and then you decided, I think I'm going to do this, and you brought a couple guests to an opportunity meeting that ended up doing really well, right? Yep. And they joined the business, and they brought in a good team. and you start to have success. And I think we were talking at an event or something. You go, I think I might go up to Boise and start something. And I was going to speak next to the event, so I got up on stage, and I announced, "Hey, Jeff Fieldstad is going to expand to Boise," and you're like, "I am, right?"
But I think the difference, though, right, like and that's a true story. You know, you got on stage, and I just told you I was thinking about it. We hadn't decided anything,
Right.
But the difference is, and it goes back to character, and you know, like your dad and these kind of things, and your uncle, and you looked at these people as. I wanted to be that person too. I wanted to be the person where you told everybody, hey, the Fieldstad said they were going to do this, and then us actually be the people that followed through, right? So we felt obligated,
Right,
to just follow through on what everybody else was kind of excited about.
For sure. And that happened so many times to me too. You know, Brendan Merton would say, "Oh man, you're going to be $1 million earner in this company," and it would, you know, and it would hit me, you know. Right. Or I'd see, you know, Chris Howard, who was one of our leaders as well, incredible leader in the company also. He just went over $1 million in income when I joined. Yeah. And I remember seeing the slide, Chris Howard, $1 million in income. And I'm like, a year? You know, and then they showed Hector Lamarck's income, and his was like $250,000 a month. Yep. And I'm 22 years old going, oh my goodness. And then realizing that we got to be trained directly from Chris Howard and Hector. I mean, yes. Hector personally mentored me a lot in those early years, 22, 23, 20, and this guy's making $200,000 a month. Yep. And being willing to reach out, right? And and reach out. I remember the story. You just became a regional vice president, mm-hmm. and you were out at the MIT, yep. Millionaires in Training, that the company would put on, and you were like ready to be done.
Yeah, I had pretty much, on the way out there, I had pretty much decided that I wasn't good enough to do the business.
And I didn't know this at the time, right. But you ran into somebody out there.
Yeah, Brian Manon.
Yeah.
Changed my life. And it's crazy. I get emotional thinking about that, because I seriously had quit mentally, and then saw Brian, and then Brian didn't know me. Right. We had never met. And just grabbed my face and said, man, if I had $1 million of you, I'd be the richest guy in this company. And I just thought, like, it wasn't even about what he said. It was just like he picked me out of this huge group. And I went, man, I must have something that he saw me out of this huge group of people that I thought were so much better than me, you know?
No doubt.
And something changed in me that day where I just realized, like, man, if he believes in me, then I should too.
He just has a way, man. He's like a big bear, right?
He is.
Big guy. In fact, we're partners now in another. We'll have him on here for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, he's definitely he's super successful in a bunch of businesses and in life, and I mean, I can see that.
It'll be fun to have him on for sure. But he changed my life. I mean, just those things, and there's so many of those times, I think, throughout everybody's life, right? So, you know, and I always think about, you know, what if when I met you, I would have said no. I didn't think I could do it. You know, I was just like trying to figure out a way. But then also I think then once I said yes, I also did everything I could to learn from you. You know, one of the things you talked about us going to lunch every day. I would go to lunch with you, and then Kelsey was working at her job, and then I would go to lunch with her while she was at her job after we went to lunch. And I would never eat with her. She would always get mad because I already got lunch with you, right? And I said, look, if he invites me to lunch, I'm going. Yeah. And she would get mad. Why? Because I wanted to put myself, like at that time, I was this broke, unsure, mad at the world young kid. Mm-hmm. And I just looked up to you so much. And I just thought, man, if I could, whatever he thinks, no matter how he thinks, if I can just pick up on the way he thinks, then maybe I can start learning some of this stuff, and it'll help change my life. And it did, right? Right. And it's just those things that people are willing to do, don't realize maybe how much benefit they actually have on people's lives long term.
Yeah, I agree. No doubt. Yeah, I mean, you know, what do you think, when you were looking at the business, what attracted you to it? I mean, what was it that you saw it, and you were obviously working with me, but what did you observe? What made the switch go off, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things. You know, when I was young, you know, when you're young like that, man, I just wanted to make a lot of money. Number one, honestly,
sure,
right? Like I think at first I wanted an opportunity I could provide a great life, but then I started realizing, like, everybody needs help. You know, everybody needs help financially. Like, who doesn't need to learn more about money? You know, everybody. And it seemed like as I got started, the people that I thought were doing well actually needed help the most, right? And so I think that inspired me as well. And so the things that got me into the business, I think were totally different than the things that kept me in the business long term.
Yep.
Because up front it was these shiny things, you know, I wanted to make a lot of money. I grew up poor. I was sick and tired of being poor. I wanted to be rich. But I also love what we did for people, and I wanted what I did to be meaningful. I wanted to be able to feel proud and be glad that I had the ability to serve people in my community. But then what kept me here long term, number one, was seeing the results of our people that I would recruit. You know, it didn't only change my life, but in the process, it was like I was able to recruit people that were some unemployed, and then all of a sudden 12, 24 months later, they're making 15, 20 grand a month and watching their life change. But then also, more importantly than the amount of money, it was usually the same people that were investing in themselves, right? They became better people, better parents, better husbands or wives. And so I think those things kept me long-term going, right? Like, I mean, I went hard for a lot of years, right? Just like you did. And I think a lot of times that probably is what kept me going so hard for that long, is watching people transform. And in the process, it just, you know, we kept doing those same things that we were teaching other people to do. And we just kept increasing the quality of our life too, you know?
I think if I was observing from the outside, and this is how it was for me, and I'm assuming it was probably the same for you. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but earlier in the game, you're driven a lot by fear.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I don't do this, I'm gonna I'm still unfortunately motivated by fear, and I know that's not the best way to be motivated. I know love is the best way to be motivated, but to this very day, I'm fearful that I'm not gonna make it. I'm fearful that it's not gonna work. I'm fearful, and if you can transition that into doing it out of pure love, which is what I think you were able to do in your business, is you started to, and I think I did the same thing. I evolved into, I truly, genuinely was more in it to impact people's lives.
Right.
And when that starts happening, that's when your explosive growth starts to happen.
Right.
Early years, I was this rough, rugged leader.
Yeah.
I say rough and rugged, but I was abrasive, I think is more of the right word. I was like.
I mean, abrasive to some.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, 'cause guys like me thrived off of that stuff. It's like, quit sugarcoating it, just tell me the truth, right? But yeah, I definitely think over time, I watched you mature as a man that was able to be less focused on the initial outcome and more focused on the long-term outcome, which led to massive growth, right?
So I've got a question about that, okay? Because I think, man, you hear successful people talk about how they became successful and what they did early on in their career and how a lot of it was mistakes, but yet if they didn't do those things early in their career, they wouldn't have what they have today.
Right.
So I always wrestle with this because I go, okay, man, when I had my biggest explosive growth, this is how I was, this is how I did it. Now I can look back and go, man, I could have done it a lot better. But could I have? If I would have been the way I am today, back then, I wouldn't have got it done.
Right.
So I think there's my opinion, is there's stages of life we go through. And there were mistakes I made with people, and I feel terrible for that. I didn't mean to make the mistakes. I meant well. My heart was in the right place, but because of lack of experience, or maybe lack of taking the time to really get in their lives and say, hey, what's going on here?
Right.
Man, if I could have done that with a couple people and just said, hey, you know what, man, I know you're going through a hard time. This is what I think we need to have happen. Maybe I'm wrong. And just be and let it almost work itself out, instead of trying to, nope, we're cutting this off right here.
Yeah, I think those are things you learn through experience, right? And becoming a leader. I think that's part of becoming a leader, is learning how to work through things that were not good at the beginning. I mean, definitely if you were abrasive, I don't even know what you call abrasive, right? And the same thing, like a lot of our biggest leaders came from those times. And so you ask yourself, well, did I attract better people because I was so much tougher on people? Or could I have gotten so much bigger if I would have come across in a more inclusive way, right? And those are hard questions to ask, but all I can encourage people is to do is just stop thinking and start doing. And I'm grateful for the mistakes because it makes me who I am today. Yeah, could I have done different things differently before and avoided some pitfalls and some mistakes? But at the same time, then would it have happened later when my business was bigger and caused a bigger challenge because I didn't know how to handle it, and I had to learn how to handle it with a bigger business. So I personally would like to learn all of that stuff as soon as possible up front as I'm getting started, rather than later on when your business is bigger and there's more on the line in people's careers and lives and all this kind of stuff. I prefer to practice when it's new versus more established. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna have to go through these challenges sometime in our lives. That's the beauty of a podcast like this, is we have combined so many years of experience of leadership and just all things inclusive of winning in life, right? And what we've been through that gives us so much content to really share with people. But I think so many people are trying to avoid that process. And I think if I can help, impact people's lives in a way that stops them from trying to avoid that process and helps them embrace it and just become stronger through it and better through it, then I think we can accomplish something big doing a podcast like this and helping people get strong there and realize you're still going to go through that stuff. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because those things are what got us to where we're at today.
For sure.
I don't know, man. Of course, it'd be a lot less painful to not go through it.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, how do you learn? How do you learn without going through some of that pain? That's kind of part of the deal.
Yeah, it's like there's a saying, right? It says the best way to learn is through other people's experience, and that's the power of a mentor. But at the same time, you have to have freedom to start making choices. And once you start making choices, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make choices you shouldn't have made, but there's no way to learn the best way to calculate the choice unless you have the freedom to make mistakes. And I think any good mentor is going to allow people to make mistakes so that they can learn these lessons long term and then be able to pass them on later as well. So I think it's just part of success. I don't think it's anything we can avoid. I think it's the things that successful people lean into are those things. It's things that people who haven't succeeded yet, they kind of avoid, and that's really what stopped them from getting into a place of, hey, I'm going to go make this happen, and I'm going to figure out a way to do it. Right.
Well, good. Well, yeah, I think, you're right. I think with what we're trying to do here with this podcast, we kind of thought about all the F words that we were talking about. And maybe not the F word a lot of people might think I'm talking about, but faith, fitness, finance, freedom, friendships, and just going down that list and being able to have all the people that we would like to have on here with us. I think we can share a lot of good things for people.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I think you look at your life today. I was telling you this the other day, is that you're not one to brag or post all this stuff on social media, but the neighborhood you live in, the home you live in, the freedom you have, the amount of money you made. I mean, how many people net a seven-figure income? How many people net a seven-figure income on an annual basis in the United States? It's not many. Right. I mean, there's a big group of people, I guess, if you take the whole thing. There's a lot of opportunity for it to happen.
More today than there's ever been.
You really have separated yourself from the crowd, right? And I think so many people in this world want to learn from men like you who have succeeded in business, but also have a great family. You've got great children, you've got great parents, and been able to do that all at a young age. I mean, how old are you?
43.
So 43 years old.
Yeah.
And most people wish they could just start to accomplish something like that in their 40s or 50s, where here you are, and with a lot of information and value to add. Man, I think people are going to get a lot from this. I'm excited about it.
Me too. So kind of wrapping up here, Jeff, your ideal life moving forward from here, what does it look like? What do you, all areas, whatever areas you want to talk about, I mean, you're working on some awesome stuff right now. You got a beautiful family. You got probably some of the best looking kids out there. We were talking about the other day, I think we got the best looking kids in the world, right? We're biased, but just a beautiful family, super blessed, same thing. I mean, made millions of dollars, sold your business for millions of dollars, and now you're teed up for, I mean, it would always drive me crazy when people say, oh, you're retiring. I am not retiring. I will never retire. Yeah. That is don't tell me I'm retired. But I know what they're saying.
I did try to retire.
I know, so and I knew it wouldn't last, by the way.
So I did try for a couple of years. It didn't last. I think, I guess why that didn't last is the same reason of what I see next, is I think what happens in life is we get out of this phase of, or for me personally, I went through this whole phase of my life where I got to get financially independent. I got to get financially free. I got to set my family up. And we did that. And then there's always this thing you want to do because you did that, right?
Yep.
And so once I got to that thing, God has different plans sometimes in your life. And so, we had a couple of years where we took a break, and then all of a sudden opportunities start.
What did you do during that break? Talk a little bit about that. You did what you always wanted to do.
Yeah, I bought a big boat
Yeah.
and went sailing and, lived in Florida for, some of that time.
I always thought that was the craziest idea, like an awesome idea, but dude, he's crazy.
Yeah.
And you freaking did it.
Yeah. And I'll do it again too, honestly.
Yeah.
But yes, I did that. And we
you learned how to sail.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know how.
No, I didn't know how to sail.
You learned how to sail, and you went out for how long on the boat?
About 9 months. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun.
Flipping cool.
Yeah. So we'll do it again. Yeah. It's just our plans changed. Really, COVID had an impact on that too. But
yeah.
So my plans in the future just impact, man. We're at a stage in our life. My kids are young enough to where, they have so much fun watching us do what we're doing in our life and want to be a part of it. So they're still that young, but they're not old enough to where we're just the parents they're trying to get away from. And so we want to instill in them opportunities. So my dream right now is just to build something great for the future. As my children grow up, they learn all these great things. They watch us do this stuff that you learned from your father, right?
Yeah.
Hard work, focus, setting goals, affirmations, believing in people. I want my son hearing me, telling people I believe in them and you can do it and you're incredible. I want those things happening. But it's also, we have so much freedom.
Yeah.
So I think that being able to give back and take all the things that we've learned and pour back into other people like this, giving out free content to people and just being a voice of what I think can make our country better, our communities better, our families better.
Right.
And that's one of the things I always try to do, man, is I've kind of made it my mantra is just better, right? Whether it's my marriage, I want to wake up every day and get better. My spiritual life, I want to wake up every day and get better. My financial life, I want to wake up every day and get better. My fitness, I want to get better. Whatever I do, I just want to improve.
Yeah.
Every single day, wake up and improve. So really, for me, that's a future, man. It's just to wake up every day and get better and do what I can. How about you?
Beautiful. No, that's awesome, man. I would just add, I think, something that you do a great job of. You didn't mention this, but you don't have to mention this because of the way you live, is just being a God-fearing man and doing your best to live that way. And, I think about, what do you want your kids to say about you? What do I want my kids to say about me? I hope one of the top things, or the top thing is, he loved the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And we lived in that way. I'm not perfect by any means. I screw up like crazy, but I would hope that that's number one. But yeah, I think for me, a perfect ideal situation is to be able to, when opportunities come my way, be able to allow God to bless me with those opportunities instead of trying to force it. I'm a very controlling, my nature is to control. I want to control. And I'm learning later in life, and I wish I would have learned this earlier in my business, because I think I was too much of a control freak. And in some ways, I think it helped, but I think I was trying to do it all on my own. And instead of, hey, God's there to help us, and if we will just continue to move forward and, like you say, get better every day in all those areas you mentioned, the opportunities are going to come.
Right.
If you're living right, He's going to bless you to bless other people's lives. And for whatever reason, man, I struggle with that faith sometimes.
Yeah.
I know it's true.
Yeah.
But I struggle with it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how all that unfolds.
Yeah.
I know we're working on a bunch of stuff together right now and opportunities right now. And who knows which ones are going to lead to whatever else. And you got here earlier today and told me about something that just kind of connected and came together on some other stuff. It's magical. So I look forward to seeing all those things come together. But same thing, ideal situation, be able to spend time with my family and have great experiences every single year. Every single day. Hopefully we have some type of experience, but making memorable experiences with my kids, with my family, whether that be through travel, through building something together, whether that be business or service projects or whatever that ends up being. And then, hobbies. I love to hunt. I want to hunt all over the world. I want to take my boys hunting all over the world. That's a passion of mine. I own, I'm a part owner of a company that books hunts all over the world and does shooting courses and all that. So that's been fun to do that and work hard to build that company. And, I think down the road, when the kids grow up and get older, I think Lexi and I'd like to go serve missions ourselves, and awesome. Do that and just whatever that means, you know. But it's, we're blessed. You're right. We live in a great neighborhood. So do you. We live in a great part of the country.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. So.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for people to, listen to this every week as we come out with a new episode, and we're going to provide a tremendous amount of value to people's lives, I think, especially in the world today. So many of the things that I think that embody the word solid you are, a strong man who's provided a great life for his family, always put God first, keep your morals. You've always been a great man in all areas of your life. And I think that's what I'm excited about, is to be able to share some of these things that have allowed us to have success in all areas of our life, not just one. It's not, and posting pictures of Ferraris or something on Instagram, and hey, it's really like, hey, how do you have an incredible life? Regardless of how you want to live that life, but if you want to live an incredible life, we're going to give you the information and the tools and the knowledge so that you can implement what you come here and listen to. So you're going to leave here and be able to go take something and implement it in your life to make it better.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to impact a lot of people, man.
I do too. How long would it take us to sit here and name all the people that have been influential in our businesses, in our lives, leaders, friends, relationships, and hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of those on here. I think we will.
Definitely. And bring a face and a voice to a lot of people who have made a positive impact on the world, but maybe haven't been loud about it.
Yeah, for sure. And we're open to feedback. If somebody wants us to have a particular guest on or topic, we'd love to hear that too, right? Whatever Definitely. We can do to help. I think, and we talked about this too, having our spouses on. Yes. And having couples and partnerships on. That's something that maybe we don't see as much today.
Right.
So if we can integrate that, my wife is definitely the backbone behind our whole success story. I know
both of us can say that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that'll be kind of a cool little element too. We'll add, and we have founders of companies that we can get on here with us, and people that are strong in fitness and you name it, right?
It's going to be awesome. Yeah, we're going to provide a lot of great and valuable information for people to enhance their lives, man. So
cool, man.
Thanks for
episode number 1. Is it a wrap?
It's in the books. There it is.
Okay, man. I'm excited.